What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. Oh my god, I think I was looking at Shadowlands stuff earlier today. Another Dragonflight video. I hope you're all doing very well. We're going to talk about Brewmaster Monk. This is a bit of a pivot for me, I know, on in terms of some of the content on the channel, but I'm really, really enjoying Brewmaster Monk. I want to talk about some of the fundamentals of Brewmaster. I want to talk about how they mitigate damage. How do they stop damage from coming in? How do you stay alive as Brewmaster Monk? Because I think, for the most part... Hello, Mr. Turtle. Can you just chill? Dude, calm down. For the most part, I think a lot of people don't understand how to play Brewmaster or why it's even a good tank. And they just think that it's actually not a good tank. I think that the difficulty is in understanding some of the under-the-hood mechanics of how Brewmaster Monk works, because it doesn't work like any other tank in the game. And I think that there's a big reason why some of the best players in the world can play Brewmaster Monk, and why it gets taken to a lot of the Race to World First events, or anytime there's big top guilds trying to push into a raid, they often will bring a Brewmaster Monk. And I think sometimes people are like confused as to why, because the way you mitigate damage on this thing is just so different than the other tanks. So let me pull some images that I've got over here. Let's bring this over here. And there we go. So let me show you this. I'm going to talk about tanks for a second really quick, and we're going to focus on how tanks mitigate damage and why Brewmaster is different, because I think this is really important to understanding kind of how Brewmaster works, why it works differently, and why it's maybe difficult to get your head wrapped around that. So number one, you've got your block tanks. This is going to be the block boys. Prot Warrior, Prot Paladin, right? Prot Warrior being the premier blocking tank. You just put up your shield block and you're immediately blocking attacks. You can critically block stuff. That's great. Brewmaster Monk doesn't have any block at all. There's no block for Brewmaster. Prot Paladin has a lot of block now. You Shield of the Righteous, of course, gives you armor, but mostly it's about getting Holy Shield, gives you 20% more block. Barricade of Faith, these are actually getting buffed in 10.0.7, so I've gotten up to about 70 to 90% block chance on my Prot Paladin. So again, block is really great because it just gives you straight up damage reduction. You take 30% less damage from physical hits. And in the case of Warrior, you're taking like 70% less damage. So those are the block guys. The parry group here in the middle, this is going to be your Blood DK and your Demon Hunter. Those are the main two parry tanks in the game. These other guys, actually, Paladin and Warrior, both also get parry, but it's not as good as this. They get like 15 to 17%, which is still great. They still actually get it, and kind of insane. Brewmaster gets 3% parry, based on, I don't even know where it comes from, but that's what I saw in the game. So basically, Brewmaster doesn't get parry, and Brewmaster doesn't get block. Okay, well, what does Brewmaster get? Well, Brewmaster, I would say, is the premier dodging tank in the game. Also, Bear is very, very good at dodging as well. That's the big thing for Bear. Mostly Bear is interested in its health pool being very large, as well as its ability to just heal itself back up with things like Dream of Cenarius and Frenzied Regen and all these things like that. So they also get dodge, though. But I think Monk is the premier dodging tank in the game, and that's because of your mastery, Elusive Brawler. You can also get a talent, sorry guys, called Activating Purifying Brew or Celestial Brew. Gives you 15% dodge. There you go. Each time you are hit by a melee attack or you hit somebody with Blackout Kick, you gain 15.5% increased dodge chance until your next successful dodge. So you are guaranteed to get dodge on the Brewmaster. That's why I think it is the kind of premier dodge tank. But look at this chart. Look at like Prot Warrior and Prot Paladin. Prot Warrior and Prot Paladin, they get dodge. They actually get a certain amount of dodge. I didn't put them on the list here, but they get about 10 to 15% dodge. They get 10 to 15% parry. They get block as well. Prot Paladins can block spells. So these other tanks, especially those two over there, they just get so many extra bonuses that that Brewmaster doesn't get. Brewmaster doesn't get parry. We get 3%. We do get dodge, but it kind of stacks up a little bit. We don't get block, and we don't have a lot of armor. Let's look at the stats for all the different tanks here really quick. So look at this here. We'll do Brewmaster last. The armor for all the other tanks, 60%, basically damage reduction just on your armor, your base amount of armor. Those are the plate boys. They get a lot more armor. Guardian Druid gets 45 to, you can get all the way up to about 75, 80% DR if you're stacking Iron Furs with your armor. Blood DK gets about 25 to 45% damage reduction, physical damage reduction with the bone shields. And then your demon hunters get about 40 to 55% depending on your demon, if you have demon spikes on or not. So a lot of armor there. Look at the armor on Brewmaster Monk. You get 15% baseline, and there's no way to make that bigger. So you're not really mitigating a lot of damage there when you're getting hit by physical attacks. Let's look at stamina. Warrior, 30% stamina. Aegis of Light for Paladin, 50% stamina. Bear form gives them 45% stamina, and then they get another more stacking stamina based on their mastery with the maximum health for Guardian Druid. Blood Decay gets 20% plus 30. That's 50% stamina. Thick Skin for Vengeance DH. They get 65% more stamina. Brewmaster Monk gets 45% more stamina. That's it. And it's basically on the low end here. You're actually the only one lower is Warrior, but it's not lower by that much. So this is really interesting when you start looking at like the damage reduction capabilities of Brewmaster Monk. It's starting to look very strange. It's like all these other tanks in the game get more armor, they get more stamina, they have more mechanics, more ways of stopping damage like block and better parry. They have a really good parry chance. Some of them even have a similar dodge chance to the baseline dodge chance of Brewmaster. So it's like, what the heck does Brewmaster have that makes them good? Why is this even a tank? And we're going to flip over here and talk about Stagger for a second. This is, of course, the unique sort of premier tanking mechanic for Brewmaster. It's called Stagger. So what does it mean? It just says you shrug off attacks, delaying a portion of physical damage based on your agility, instead taking it over 10 seconds. So the baseline Stagger that I have right now on my level 70 Brewmaster Monk, I just hit 70. So my agility is a little bit lower than it otherwise would be. So just take this all with a grain of salt in terms of the numbers. These numbers would be bigger, I believe, if you had more agility, okay? Just keep that in mind. The baseline I have right now is about 25% stagger. Now, if I'm shuffling, which is a passive you get just by doing your abilities, right? Shuffle is granted by attacking enemies with Keg Smash, Blackout Kick, Spinning Crit. You're always going to be pressing those buttons. So just pretend like this baseline amount doesn't actually exist. You are always going to have the baseline stagger plus the shuffle bonus, which doubles your stagger. So now it's going to be 53%. So what does that mean? It means I'm taking 53% of incoming physical damage and I'm shoving it into the future. I don't actually take that damage on my health bar. It goes into my stagger bar, which is down below my health bar. And then I still take that damage, but I take it over 10 seconds. And then, of course, I can use Purifying Brew, which just gets rid of 50% of that staggered damage. So this is pretty insane. Think about this for a second. We don't have block. We don't have parry. We don't have a big health pool like a lot of the other tanks. But we get 50% damage reduction all the time. Somebody hits you for 100 damage. You only take 50% of that on your HP bar. So you take 50 damage up front, okay? Then 50% of that staggers over 10 seconds. Then you press Purifying Brew. It's going to remove 50% of your stagger, which is 50% of 50. That's 25 damage removed. That's a lot of math, I know. But the point is, you are stopping a tremendous amount of damage from coming into your character at all times. You are stopping about 53, and that would scale up with your agility, maybe to 60. I don't know how high that can actually go. I don't have a max level, like a max geared character yet, so I'd have to see. But what you can do is you can say, this is why Brewmasters are taken in a lot of progression content, because they don't take enormous amounts of damage up front. They take it into their stagger bar. Then the main gameplay loop for Brewmaster Monk is dealing with your stagger bar. You have to manage this sucker because you are going to start taking crazy amounts of damage over time because you're just shoving all of your all the incoming damage into that stagger bar and you're not taking it on your health pool. Now, your mastery, as I said before, helps to contribute with this. Each time you're hit by a melee attack or you kick somebody with a blackout kick, you gain the stacking dodge, right? So here's a little note here. Stagger plus dodge plus your mastery, which gives you dodge. They all help to smooth out incoming damage, especially those big hits. That's the entire playstyle of Brewmaster Monk, is just evening out all the incoming damage over and over and over again. You just want to keep it even keel. You don't want to be in a situation where you're taking a ginormous hit. You never will, actually, as a Brewmaster Monk. So let me show you what goes on here for a second. Okay, I grabbed a bunch of guys here. I got my shuffle going. So we are taking half of the damage that we otherwise would, and we're shoving it into our stagger, of course. You can see my stagger bar is at about 20k there. I pressed a Purifying Brew, so it's going down right now. Let's press another Purifying Brew. 23k to 11k. You can see that. Now, of course, we're still taking damage, but we have ways to heal ourselves. Just not as incredibly reliable consistently as other tanks. But 37k into our stagger. Boom. Let's shove it down. Let's shove it down again. There, we're down to only a 10k stagger now. So you can see that's how that kind of works. It's that ebb and flow where I'm not taking 50% of the damage that I otherwise would be taking, but it's going into my stagger, so I do need to deal with it eventually. Now, you have multiple ways of dealing with stagger. You've got Purifying Brew being the main one, and you want to get Purifying Brew back as much as possible. Let me just look at this for a second. Purifying Brew. So look, you got your 2 charges here, and they buff Celestial Brew, of course. Then you can also take Black Ox Brew, which will give you 2 charges of Purifying Brew back and Celestial Brew. So very important cooldown here, actually, and it's a brew. So it's cooled down by your Keg Smash and other abilities that cool down your brews. So Purifying Brew is the #1 way that you're going to get your stagger down. Number 2 is going to be Nizao, your main cooldown. So let's get another fight going here. My shuffle's going, so I have double the stagger now. I'm staggering 50% of incoming damage. I'm going to summon Nizao. Watch my stagger bar. It's at 20k, 21k, 19, 23, 22, 21. He keeps fighting it for me. He actually staggers 25% of the damage that I'm taking. So Nizao is another way that you can deal with your stagger bar besides just Purifying Brew. He's actually a fantastic way. Really, really good cooldown there. So you have your Purifying Brew, you've got Nizao. You can also take Weapons of Order, which is right here, and if I press this, it will summon Nizao. Look, he's back for 10 seconds. And again, he's staggering 25% of the damage that I would otherwise stagger. Now, that's a capstone node that you can take. You don't have to take it, but you could if you wanted to, okay? That's down here. Weapons of Order has Cult Arms. You get Nizao. So again, wonderful. Another way to deal with stagger. Also, Touch of Death deals with stagger. You exploit it to enemies' weakness, instantly killing them. Only usable on creatures that have reduces your delayed stagger damage by 200% of the damage dealt. So Touch of Death is actually the best way to clear all of your stagger damage, which is amazing. So again, multiple ways to do it, and there are multiple other little ways as well. Let's type in stagger here. You can see Quick Sip, Purify 5% of your stagger damage each time you gain 3 seconds of shuffle. So you're always kind of fighting that stagger bar. It's always going down by a little bit. And then when you want a big chunk to go down, you press Purifying Brew. If you want all of your stagger to disappear, you press Touch of Death. And if you want a really tough, amazing cooldown that's going to consistently keep bringing down your stagger as well, you can invoke Nizao, the Black Ox. So multiple ways for you to deal with that stagger bar, which again is 50, 60, 70% of the damage that you would have taken, you're just not taking anymore. So it's a very unique, really amazing way to tank mobs in World of Warcraft, and it's definitely the most unique tank in the book. And I love Monk, but I understand why it's intimidating for people, why they struggle with Brewmaster a little bit in understanding. So I hope that this has helped to clear it up for you guys a little bit. Remember, you don't take about 50% of the damage that you otherwise would because of your stagger. Your stagger is always going to be getting improved by shuffle, because you're always going to be pressing Keg Smash or Black Oak Kick or Spinning Crane Kick. You're just managing that bar that you've shoved 60% of the damage into. You're going to manage that with your Purifying Brew. With Nizao, you can take Weapons of Order, which gives you Nizao. You can press Touch of Death. Those are the biggest ways to deal with the stagger bar. And of course, you can get your Purifying Brews back with Black Ox Brew. Very important that you use all these cooldowns to constantly make it so that you're not actually taking the 60% of the damage that you shoved into that bar. You want to just get rid of it as much as you possibly can, okay? Besides that, you're just healing yourself with things like Healing Elixir, big heals from Expel Harm. That would be the best way to heal yourself. And then you have a lot of damage reduction abilities as well. You've got Dampen Harm, and you've got your big Celestial Brew giving you a shield all the time. You can buff your Celestial Brew whenever you press Purifying Brew. That's what this talent does here. Improve Celestial Brew. So there's a really good mix of straight damage reduction, getting rid of your stagger bar, and then healing yourself a little bit over time. Okay? You can't go infinite on the healing like a prop paladin could with Word of Glories, but you don't really need to. It's more about managing this bar right here. It's less about healing yourself. You do need to heal yourself, but it's more about managing the bar. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. That's my introduction kind of to Brewmaster. I really wanted to just talk about how it functions to help you guys who might be thinking about getting into Brewmaster, thinking about tanking. If you don't understand how this thing works, I totally get it. I hope this helped you a little bit to understand how Brewmaster kind of mitigates damage and how it's so incredibly different from all of the other tanks that we have in the game. I really love it. It's a lot of fun. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one.